Welcome. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 204 of the Winners and Losers Show, hosted by me, Hank Thompson, your host, Hank Thompson. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to all you new people. Thank you so much. I know a lot of people have subscribed in the last week or so. I went on the Vanguard podcast. Go check it out. Link in the description. We're going to go through some clips of that today. We're also going to look at comments from that were generated out of onto my documentary video, as well as probably some comments from the latest TYT video that I put up about the TYT versions going through the article that I just published. It's been a weird week or two since I got back from my trip. I wasn't anticipating going on the Vanguard. In fact, my plan coming home was to focus on getting rid of the cat, finding a home for I think I just saw her behind me climbing into her little bed. Oh, she's up on the top there. Look at her. Look at how cute she is. Oh yeah, there's a hilarious moment from the Vanguard that we'll go into. I just remembered it right now, so I'll have to pause and find it. But there's something so weird and embarrassing and like just real trash. It just involving the cat that is nothing to do with any of the politics or anything at all. But we'll go to that. If I remember, Jesus, I forget half the time. What should I say? So. Yeah, it's just been a couple of screwball. I was just exhausted after my trip home. I needed to decompress. I did the 3.5-hour podcast sometime that week, or maybe like that Friday. Check it out. It's episode 203. Lots of Young Turks documentary talk. And then Gavin reached out and asked if I want to come on the show, and I was like, oh yeah, of course. But like, it totally derailed my plan to try to get rid of the cat. I just couldn't do both at the same time for some reason. So, but yeah, I did get into the Facebook group I was hoping to. That's like a cat network. So I have a little optimism that maybe I'll find somebody who wants a wonderful cat within 7 hours drive of Los Angeles. So fuck, I hope I can solve this problem soon. What a weird thing to do to yourself to just like trap an animal in your room and all that. I just should have thought it through how much organics would be involved. I'm a gross, difficult to care for animal myself. I struggle to care for myself. What the hell was I thinking? What the fuck was I thinking? God, it's been such a, and it's not the cat's fault. It's because I'm not a cat guy. It's just, it feels like I have a babysitting job I don't want that I pay for. It's ridiculous. I have to borrow money for food for the cat. But anyway, all right, so that's fine. Grateful for the attention. We've gotten like 3,000 new views on the documentary. I don't know if it shows up there. 18K. I think it was around 15K before. As I said, we're going to go through some Vanguard clips, but it's been a real weird, I screw this stuff up so much. I think I'm obviously my own worst enemy, but like I should have been banging out podcasts and clips after the Vanguard appearance because people were really starting to pay attention to the show. The clip that they put up has like 7,000 views. So by far, this is the most amount of attention that I've been able to garner for the documentary, maybe in comparison to when the first one launched in February of this year, the first 46 minutes. That's one right here. And it like hit the algorithm. So it bumped up to like 10, 12, 13,000 pretty fast. But the Vanguard audience is a lot of former TYT people and a lot of people who are interested in the online drama sphere, but also the substantive part of it. That's something they talk about quite a bit. I know that people drag them for covering the spilled tea, for looking for the messy tea. Do you spill wet tea or just is it tea leaves? Is it dry tea when we talk about spilled tea? I think it's probably wet tea, right? Sugar too, especially dried sugar sucks. It's annoying, isn't it? What am I getting at? But they do substantive analysis as well, in my opinion. I think and I've heard them say like, you got to have like the meat and the pill. It's a a sausage, like putting a pill in a sausage, so your dog will take the pill. So I'm so out of it. So yeah, it was great to go on. I was pretty glad I didn't face plant too badly. There's a couple points where I watched it and I was like, I derailed that little moment there. I said that a little bit awkwardly. And I think we're going to jump into that a little bit. I did write on Patreon a bit. Oh, so this is my second time on the Vanguard. The first one is currently unlisted, so it's only available if you have the link, and it's on patreon.com/winners and losers. Go check it out. Look for the post I put up that says Vanguard appearance. If this is way in the future, just search for that. And there's a link to both of the appearances on there. So great convo the first time, even better convo the second time. I was it really filled my sails though, to get some of their takes and some of their analysis. Obviously, like the kind things that they said about my incredibly good editing, I was very glad to see, because I'm like, yeah, I agree. I'm glad I'm not the only person who thinks that. But and then the subscriber count on my channel here has blown up from 750 to over 1.1. So we've gained like 350 subscribers, which is amazing in like 8 days. Crossing the 1,000 mark is big on YouTube. Very few channels reach that point. It's really difficult. I've been grinding away slowly and poorly for a long time, and I probably should have gotten there a little bit sooner. What am I saying here? Got some new Patreon supporters. We're up to like 20 something bucks a month, which is freaking rad. Love it. If you have a few bucks to support a filmmaker like me who's doing this weird project, go ahead and go for it. I don't really do a lot of exclusive things on there yet. My capacities these days are somewhat limited. Some wonderful donations come in. I'm a bit overwhelmed. I have to still formulate a response, and it's been really good to see all that. But also, for some reason, because I'm kind of a wackadoo, I got overwhelmed and I had to like hide a little bit. So I just didn't want to get. I just had to like sort of pull back from the whole thing and kind of just cocoon myself for a stretch. Over-consuming social media, over-consuming the election. I think that's actually like the main thing. So I also have a whole bunch of clips picked out that I've just been bookmarking over the last couple of days. Not couple of days, week or so, I guess, relating to the just various things. It's kind of a randomized bookmark rumble hustle. I'm trying to think of a term. Bookmark medley, bookmark buffet that we're going to go through. I don't know if it's entertaining or not. I'm betting that you like listening to me talk. That's kind of the whole thing. What a strange choice to make in life. But mainly, and it's something that I said in here, and I might even have clipped it out in one of the clips you're going to watch, but it's like, I did read a few of the comments on Vanguard's post of the clip out, not their live stream, what they clipped out, and just seeing people kind of sharing their own experiences with bosses and with having to take a stand or leave a job or some way relating their own experience. I love seeing that. I love hearing that. I don't want this just to be about me and my story, because ultimately I think when this thing, if this thing is to reach greater heights, I hope it has to become a vehicle for people to like experience their own story through it, in a sense, or to relate to it through their own experiences, and to maybe even find it cathartic. Because I don't think people really do this sort of calling out a boss so directly and with such forwardness the way I have been doing it. It doesn't seem to be happening. It doesn't seem like something that most people would do or have the wherewithal to do necessarily, or even the gumption, the risk, the bad boundary detection / fuck it, let's go for it / like, I just happen to be a very precise constellation of traits and circumstances that allowed me to like try this and do this. Allowed is probably the wrong word. I mean, there has been many times and I almost didn't do it at all. I was just like, I got to move on from this shit. This is too much. I think that's partially what I'm a little bit dealing with in terms of the overwhelm, is like, I don't know. I don't like just deciding that there's a success moment. That's a bit too, constraining. And I think that's problematic, but like, this felt like I was starting to get a taste of some of the way that the whitewater rafting course is starting to pick up a little bit of energy, and that's sort of leading towards what we might call success, which I don't really know. Honestly, success for me was when I'm finally fucking done talking about it. But the problem is that the more people see it, the more people relate to it, connect to it, support with financial or sharing or having me on their shows, or, putting it on their streams. Then I have to talk about it more. So it's a curse in a sense, but I want that to, it's okay. You know what I mean? Like, that's the bet that I'm making. Cause the part of this where I was thinking about this a lot, and then we'll jump over to the videos here, is like if I said it during the interview with Zach and Gavin, but like, if this is a miss, meaning like it's one thing for it to miss because it just the video's not that good or it doesn't just tag it. Like I didn't tag it right. I sold it weird. I packaged it weird. It just wasn't able to reach an audience. It's very difficult to kind of do that, especially if you're doing it by yourself and you're dealing with your own other, whatever, blah, blah, blah. If it missed for that reason, okay, whatever. But if it missed because people thought that this was not worth making a stink about, and I'm sure I'll get some of that too, along with like more people paying attention. You're going to also attract critics and criticism. And actually, I'm looking forward to looking at all these comments. If you look up here at the 9+, we have like 60 comments to go through. I don't know if I have them. I can't. Yeah. Some are on a different video, but there'll be judgmental commentary and there'll be, people defending Cenk and stuff. And I guess during the live stream that was actually happening in the chat, which is fine. I mean, partly what I'm doing this for is I want to see what people are wrong about when they criticize me, or what sort of major misses did I, make in assess. What didn't I not assess? What sort of factors did I not consider? Because that's part of the stress of this whole thing is like I just don't have like a wide council of advisors. My poor roommate is so patient and kind, but he's certainly tired of hearing me talk about this shit. And I have a couple other friends that I've been able to like talk it through somewhat, but nothing close to like having like a partner or or like a producer partner or some sort of production system or just nothing on the regular that I would really like appreciate. So yeah, I really hope that I can build out a rally squad to help me with the GoFundMe that I'm going to do. Probably still haven't done the research about that. The election's chewing up all the oxygen right now too. So yeah, like I wasn't expecting to go down the Vanguard before the election. I was thinking like, oh man, there's been a lot of stuff with TYT in terms of the online drama sphere. The latest today is Ana Kasparian was sort of parsing out the definition of fascism in her and Cenk. So people are tweeting about that online, and that's fine. It's okay. Whatever. It's not fair to make assumptions. So the whole process has picked up some steam, but of course then I go into cocoon mode and ruin it. And so anyway, did I make the point I said I would before we jumped over? Yeah, lost my train of thought. But I guess what I was sort of getting at was just even the criticisms, as much as I want to see all the positive responses and the people supporting and stuff and sharing their own stories, even the criticisms are information. They're telling you something either about something you got wrong or something that you might need to rethink or just consider from a different angle or just a data point. It's an easy way to just sort of categorize. Or the criticisms will also serve as kind of like validating the ways that the conspiracy that Cenk told his audience worked, right? Like, so one thing that I saw on a Vanguard on their post of the interview was someone talking about how they were duped about the Young Turks at the time. Like they thought it was a conspiracy from political opponents. And they're like, I admit that I was like, I even wrote them. I was like, you don't have to admit, like, I'm very much paraphrasing, but it was just, I felt grateful to see that this person was like, again, they weren't fessing up. You don't have to fess up. It's okay to say that. And I want to encourage more people to come forward to me or leave a comment somewhere or send whichever way you choose to do that, Twitter, here, Patreon, whatever, that you at the time were misled or that you felt that something was going on or that you believed the narrative that TYT put out, or maybe that you just felt confused. Like that stuff is really helpful for me to kind of get a map of the way the audience felt, because I address a lot of that in the movie. I have a whole bunch of tweets and stuff. I kind of bucket that out to like randos online, and then like the progressive sphere, online taco sphere. Whenever I say that word, I was just get hungry. That's sort of were like the progressive commentators that trusted Cenk and stuff, and then Ana herself is like her own category of source, because she seems to have used Cenk as her source for the information that was put out that was not true. And so the more people that sort of are seeing this story and you're getting a perspective that I'm sharing, and now and then leaving comments that it's you felt misled at the time, that's awesome. Like I really want to hear more of that, because that validates the purpose of this, which is to correct the record, which is to tell the audience that there was actually a whole different story, not the more accurate, not even more accurate, the true story of why workers at the Young Turks secretly unionized. You know, we'd been working on it. It was a long effort that went on for 18 months before Cenk became a politician. Not that it was a diligent effort that time. There were breaks. You know, you probably might know all the details and stuff. And so yeah, it's been a fascinating kind of time to or it's been an active time, I should say, in this project. So speaking of that, let's just jump over. I did want to make a quick correction, or at least not really a correction. This is more of I found a clip that I had referenced in the previous episode. So in episode 203, and I've already put out the big one. Why don't we just go to it? For God's sakes, we're looking at the damn website right here. Okay, so this video here is the top one here. Is a clip from episode 203. This goes through the article I have. In fact, I wanted to actually rewrite that publicly. I wanted to put a word in here. Not that you can you privately smear people? I suppose you can, right? So this one is a clip from the last one. It's an 1.5-hour clip from a 3.5-hour podcast, which, you know, people do that. It's fine. And then I'll just scroll over. It's only got 184 views. We got some comments on it too, but that's great. This is good red meat for people that are interested in the TYT story. We break down the Young Turks version of how they publicly smeared people and the kind of communications that they put out publicly. And I've got another one that's going to go up that was also in episode 203 that breaks down our boy Hansi's call to Cenk during that live stream where he denied being a union buster. I think this is a really important part of this whole story is that phone call. So grateful to Hansi for that. So so I've done some editing on it, and you know, it's another 1.5 hour roughly long clip that's going to go up after I publish this podcast. So look for that. Relating to all the evidence that Cenk says, what evidence? Right before he panic hangs up. And there's so much evidence. It's insane how much. There's 4 articles that he was interviewed in. There's NLRB cases that have papers. Do I need to do it? Do I need to pull out the envelope that has the thing? Oh shit. It says you're not supposed to deface those, and I know eventually I'm gonna get like ketchup or coffee or some smudge, some kind of cat food grease, some shit from a fork. Something's gonna deface it. I'm like, oh no, I defaced it. Yeah. So anyway, so keep an eye out for that. Let's oh. So in that episode, though, I had said that I recall Cenk referring to the union busting or something. He doesn't say what he's talking about precisely, and because the point I was making was that he's barely talked about this. That phone call is the most he's talked about it, as far as I could find. Maybe there's been some behind the paywall discussion or something that I've missed, but if there is, I'd like to see it. But this, so the phone call was the biggest by far. But I did, and I didn't really like that I had communicated vaguely something that he had said about him, so I did find it. Let's see if I can get over to the damn, where is it? Okay, here it is. So this is from August 8th, 2023. Title, Marvel Visual Effects Workers Take Major Stand. So Anna's just reporting on the kind of grind work that comes from within the visual effects industry. There's a whole lot of abusive workplace practices, a whole lot of overwork, a whole lot of stuff like that. They get into these crunch times to meet their deadlines, and it gets really rough, and there's been an effort to unionize in a lot of these industries, as well as the video game world is kind of similar to that too. So but this is where Cenk refers to his own campaign, and then he actually references to the union slightly, kind of innocuously. But pay attention to the first part where Cenk talks. So here's Anna speaking first.
Complaints also include punishing deadlines, long hours, understaffing, and of course, inadequate pay. So Cenk, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I get frustrated at what giant companies get away with all the time. So you have a small company like us. When I ran for office, people made a giant deal out of like things that were basically invented, okay? And
okay, that's a sentence that I was trying to recall him saying. Just I wanted to show you this so that you know that I wasn't just making that up. Let's listen to that again. Then we'll let him talk a little longer. Well, just let him go, and then we'll go back and listen to that again.
And then you look at a giant company like Marvel, they got cry rooms. if you have a room dedicated for people crying at the office because you're working them to the ground and
I saw people cry at the Young Turks, by the way, Cenk. We didn't have a cry room though. I think people did that in their cars and bathroom.
Creating so much stress on them that they break out in tears in the middle of the office regularly, so that you have to assign a room to it. You might have some workplace issues. Yet big companies get away with stuff like that all the time, right? So our staff here, in terms of the stage crew, the editors, graphics, etc.,
doesn't even get a cry room.
we don't need a cry room. There's no need for it. We're already IATSE, right? And we get attacked in the we're already IATSE, right? And we get attacked in the press. Oh yeah, like you guys are anti-union. We have a union. It's IATSE's been here for years, right? And so
there he is. He says he calls it. I don't know. I have no idea how the people in the union think about that, but it's its own union that's split into 3 different guilds within IATSE. So yes, he's not wrong but he makes it seem like IATSE is this guerrilla that just broke in through the wall, or the Kool-Aid man just smashed his way through the wall and just sat down and just like won't leave, and he had to deal with it. And now people think it's unfair because like, we literally have the Kool-Aid man. How could it be a Kool-Aid man buster? Come on. But this is the same bullshit he was saying in the Hansi call when he was explaining that he finds it unfair that these big companies get away with all this bullshit. And to a degree, he's probably not wrong. But okay, hold on. I just had a thought that I'll try to get back to that. But he does seem to be resentful that he got held slightly accountable. And again, I wouldn't even describe it that way, even though I just said those words. But like, he's never faced accountability. This is him telling his own bullshit version of it. But this is exactly the same. You know, we get called out, but these bigger companies pull bigger crap, and we're called. We have IATSE here, so we're not. Why? It's not fair. It's not fair. Poor me.
We get attacked in the press. Oh yeah, like you guys are anti-union. We have a union. It's IATSE's been here.
Can't be anti-union if you have a union, right? That's the reasoning he tried to say. That's the gaslighting he said in that Hansi call, which I break down deeply in the episode 203. Okay, so listen to this again. Then we're gonna watch the beginning. Then I'm gonna share this thought that I just had. That's brilliant. You're gonna love it.
And we get attacked in the press. Oh yeah, like you guys are anti-union. We have a union. It's IATSE's been here for years, right? And so meanwhile, Marvel is just
okay. So he's comparing his situation to these big companies, and there is a substantial difference. Marvel Entertainment and the Young Turks, vastly different kind of companies in size, scope, all kinds of things. But I just want to play this one more time. But keep in mind the comparison that he's making as far as like the company stuff. So here
Cenk, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I get frustrated at what giant companies get away with all the time. So you have a small company like us. When I ran for office, people made a giant deal out of like things that were basically invented.
Okay, basically, the word basically there is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Is it not? Invented. Basically invented means invented. So he doesn't, this is the lawyer brain of his. He doesn't want to say we're invented because there's so much proof, I think. I mean, but like to say basically. So he's denying that the things that were invented were true is essentially what how that reads, right? Would that be fair to say? But here's a comparison, though. I want to just deconstruct that a little bit. Is that yes, TYT is not Marvel, and Cenk is now being held to some sort of accountability through my effort, at least. I mean, more people are going to learn about it, and over time, it'll probably trickle around through the various information channels. He might eventually be asked about it again. No doubt, he's prepped some kind of response to it, but the reason this is happening is because you're an overtly political entity. I almost said institution in a sense. I mean, TYT's been around online since 2005 or 6, so I suppose that's a word you could use. But you hire people who are like liberals and lefties and progressive types, so people like myself who will unionize if you fuck with them, and who will then feel like they have to correct some sort of injustice if you lie about them publicly. Like Cenk has doesn't seem to understand that by making his business a activist organization in order to espouse worker rights, that you're naturally only going to you're going to make yourself held to a higher standard than those other companies. The whole purpose of the hierarchy that Cenk is such a big, proud proponent of, and I'd take a world run by the Cenk Uygurs much more than I would by the, the Hakeem Jeffries and the Mitch McConnells is like, if he were in Congress, he'd be better than those types. But like the hierarchy that he loves, that he defends as a pro-capitalist, is the one where the accountability rules are different for different classes. And that's exactly what my story is about. Cenk doesn't want to face accountability for his behavior in my working conditions, in the union busting, and in the lying. Those are the three ethical violations that I'm kind of dialed in on. And so far, the only person that's called him out publicly is Hansi. Give me a break, man. So it's just funny to me that he thinks that like it's not fair that they're getting and this is 2023. He didn't even know I was doing this project, right? So like, so him to complain is amazing, as if it's unfair. But it's like, dumbass, you're the home of progressives. I don't think they use that phrase anymore. I feel like that's certainly got to be going in the past, gone the way of progressive Netflix, which is another term that they tried to use. That one didn't have as much staying power as home of progressives. But like, of course you raise the standard for yourself, talking about honesty, talking about truth, talking about objective reality, making a big stink about worker rights. People deserve healthcare, and then you operate your business where you deny people healthcare. And one of them just happens to feel like making a fucking stink about it. Of course, man. So anyway, I don't know what I would have gotten at there. That went longer. As usual, these podcasts go way too long. So let's jump over to the Vanguard. I'm really eager to read these comments, though. This has kind of been driving me nuts, seeing this little notification thing up there, because I get a little bit weird about the comments. The consternation I feel is never justified. It's always not as bad as I expect. There might be mean comments, but there'll probably be some nice ones, and but it does feel like a pivot point. So I did want to kind of react to it all on air. So let's start with the Vanguard's opening bit. I did pick out more than I intended when I sat down. I was clicking through it and I was like, oh, let's listen to that part. So we'll jump around a little bit here, but here's the opening chunk. I think they did a good job picking a decent hook to get viewers interested. They could have done that. I would have been fine with that. They didn't do any fact checking. So like there's a major breach of ethics, both on Ana Kasparian's part and Cenk Uygur, in that sense, about checking with the sources of the knowledge. As I said in my piece, like this, not all stories are confirmable, but very few stories are this confirmable. They weren't interested in telling their audience the truth, because the truth would have meant they would have had to talk about the reasons their workers unionized, and that would show that Cenk Uygur does not live his principles at all. Whoa! So you've never heard of this story before, and suddenly a guy says that, like, you're going to immediately probably just think, who the hell is this dude? What's his deal? So yeah, I hope people like my deal. I know I can be kind of weird and annoying. And then they jump into the doc. So let's skip past this part. And I kind of wanted to see them ramble at the beginning. Both these guys have their own sort of ramble style, and they make good points though here. So let's hear what they say.
But really appreciate everybody tuning in, taking the time to watch. We have a really important live stream. A lot of people, they may ask, why are you guys just, nitpicking constantly at the Young Turks? It doesn't dawn on them that we have 50,000 subscribers. They have 6 million subscribers. But what the real meat and potato is that they're not a progressive company. They do not walk a progressive walk. We're going to get into all of that and more. And we're going to hear it from someone who lived it, somebody who believed in the mission that the Young Turks were selling, right? So many people in our own audience, Gavin, I believe yourself included at one point,
Mm-hmm.
you were there for the heyday of the Young Turks. I really kind of got it when they were circling the drain. You know, I kind of got it when I was like, oh, wow, there were some real bright moments from Cenk here and there. Or, wow, Anna actually did sound like a leftist at one point 5 years ago, right? I had some of those brief instances with the brand, but I never bought into their progressive movement. The fact that they were going to take over mainstream media, the fact that they were going to be an alternative that actually rivaled the likes of CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, right? That was the mission. And a lot of people donated their hard-earned money. A lot of people became members. A lot of people spent in a way that they would not have spent on just a regular for-profit media company because of the lie that the Young Turks were telling them But do you have anything else that you'd like to set the table with, Gavin? You're the resident TYT expert over here.
Yeah, I've been a big fan of TYT, or I was a big fan of TYT, going back to 2015, 2016. And I'm not going to lie, man. I mean, back in that period of my life, I never thought I would be able to build a progressive independent media show in the way that we have. I dreamed of working for the Young Turks. Back in that time, I was like, I can't imagine a more cool job than working for TYT. I mean, it seemed like a genuinely progressive company. It seemed like such a good work environment. You guys remember how awesome the vibes used to be over at the Young Turks. But the more we find out about the state of affairs behind the scenes at TYT, the more I think back to that dream of mine, back in high school. And I'm like, thank God I didn't go that route. Thank God I never actually tried to work for TYT, because as you guys are about to find out, very, very unfortunate conditions at the Young Turks. And we have our friend of the show, Hank Thompson, that's going to be joining our stream very quickly here to discuss some of those damning details. I think it's probably a good place to start this conversation by just showing the audience.
Okay, so you didn't edit there. All right, so let's jump ahead. There was a point here, it's not in this one, but where Gavin made a point that I hadn't considered about this whole project that I thought was cool, that I wanted to share. But I think it might be in one of these that I've selected out here. But I just picked a few moments here where they get going, and we'll just play and see what happens.
Also, I want to give a massive shout out to Hank for the work that he did as a documentarian, as an editor. That gave me serious Michael Moore energy in a way that we don't see enough of nowadays. And it really outrages me that instead of using a guy like Hank's ability, instead of uplifting him and making him, have a bounty of opportunities at the Young Turks, which is a place that could really use some lively video editing like that.
Do you think it's a good time to introduce Hank to the live stream?
Yeah, so they did a little bit of editing with this, but I appreciated that. That obviously is nice and flattering for my ego and stuff. And I have had that thought a lot of times too. It's like I could have worked for a media production company that made cool short films and cool movies and made stuff and really developed video editors as talent. And other people who work at TOT who still do, some who no longer do, are also brilliantly talented. I use the word also there. That makes me sound like a douche, but I just want to share that praise for the other workers at the Young Turks. There's really talented people there. Hasanabi should write a huge check to the person who did most of the editing, the vast majority of the editing that built his whole foundational career, because that person worked their ass off and is incredibly talented. So, yeah, but I appreciate that. And it gives me some hope that maybe there's an opportunity for me in the future to do more movies or more documentaries and work on projects with people on bigger, kind of a whole different way than I did this one. This is not possible to do again. So anyway, I think they're about to play a clip of that, but we'll jump to the next one. There's my wonderful face. I chose ugly poop colored brown shirt to wear. Obviously great stuff. All right. So here's another one here. There's a great moment here from Zach. If you watch him, he seems to have a realization. He's the guy on the right here in the black shirt. You can see his eyes. You can see kind of the moment where he kind of has his things click. And I'm saying that because he says it hit him. Like he affirms this. So watch his face as I'm talking here, and then he jumps in and kind of talks. But I thought it was kind of funny. You can kind of see the moment where it goes, and I'll see if I could point for you. Business at Penn State, same school as Donald Trump, Elon Musk.
Yeah, that's
they should be humiliated.
Holy shit.
Right. And it's just Cenk's business acumen doesn't seem very strong when you look at this story, when you really get your head around how monumentally dumb and stupid it was to say no to this union, to just torch your whole brand. But there's a deeper layer to that, which is I think that he would, I don't know for sure, but I think he preferred to be known as a union buster than as someone who uses classification to deny benefits to workers. And right he didn't want to he didn't want to have to answer the question, why did your workers unionize? So the lie, spreading this conspiracy nonsense that the union originated as a ploy by Nancy Pelosi to disrupt his campaign, it serves two purposes, right? So it stops his audience from asking. Yeah, exactly. It creates this cloud. It creates this obscurity. You don't have to be accurate. You just have to make sure people feel confused, right? And that worked incredibly well.
Hank, just so people don't.
Great point, Hank. By the way, you don't have to be accurate. You just got to make sure people feel confused. That's what's the gift of not having ethics towards honesty. When you constrain yourself with some sort of integrity, some sort of good faith effort to be as close to the truth as you can within reason, you are liberated to create clouds, to create fogs, to make people feel confused, or at least then to be, or just enough to sort of have a little doubt injected into the entire stream. That's exactly what they were able to accomplish with this lie. It really did work.
Don't forget that. That was a very important point that you made that hit me like a ton of bricks. The fact that he was willing to be known as a union buster because otherwise he had to be known as the kind of guy that would exploit his part-time employees and use 1099 contractors and not give people health insurance and spit in the face of every value he'd ever espoused on camera as soon as it hit his bottom line, which is what every right-winger has ever said to his fucking face when they've debated. He basically validated every single one of his critics.
Well said. Well said, Zach. Your gift of gab came through in that moment. You did great there. You even ended it fairly efficiently, which is impressive. I also struggle with
a rare occurrence if you tune into the Vanguard podcast. Just ask Gavin.
Yeah. But whenever I stop talking, it's because I realize I've crossed over the line. Yep, there we go. Couple of ADHD guys bonding. So let's go to the next one here. I'm not sure what this one is. Let's go.
I guess walk us through the self-talk at that point, right? How did you decide, you know what, I don't care about the odds, I don't care about all of this mountain of people who, you have some level of respect for, maybe not at this point, right? What was that what was that experience like?
Well, I was bullied in 7th grade. Oh yeah. So this part, this is something I wanted to clarify. I'm a bit annoyed with how I answered this question. There was an idea that I was getting at that I kind of clumsily, because I kind of gave slightly contradictory information about whether I would always have come forward or were not going to come forward. And I do kind of waffle back and I kind of oscillate a little bit on that whole notion. So I didn't really have a developed answer. Also, I was just a little bit cringy about the being bullied. I mean, it's true. Like it is actually part of the motivation. Is like in a genuine. Let me just get my answer here. And I decided I wouldn't allow that to happen again. That's just truth to that. In terms of, yes, I was bullied in 7th grade, but also like it did feel like being bullied for some of this, for quite a, like someone with a lot more power is controlling stuff and making, the stress of the going through the classifications, days off without pay, no health insurance, all the stress that came with that. And then like the lying and the stuff and sort of like the kind of David and Goliath sort of scenario, I guess. So there is truth to that for sure, obviously. But here comes the, to give it, like I this felt like being bullied in a lot of, you know what I mean? Like I stood up, I had to stand up for myself. And the thing that it felt like being forced to stand up for yourself. That's kind of what I'm getting at. And the TLDR here is that like the summary, because I've been thinking about this for a few days. The thing I wish I had said more succinctly is Cenk initiated this. Cenk's decision to use classification, the independent contractor agreement, is the inciting incident that gets this whole thing going for this whole thing, right? There might have been other reasons why we would have unionized if he had just hired me as a full-time employee at that time, because other people had issues and I would have, I understood quite a lot of that too, obviously. But that's the point I'm kind of making with this sort of clumsy discussion here. And this is the part where I feel a little embarrassed. Kicked it off was Cenk making me sign the independent contractor agreement. If you're really like, that was the moment it was going to come out publicly at some point, because I just wasn't going to. That what I just said there is not quite, because then I kind of waffle back on it, and it's just like, well, yeah, maybe if it was only a month or two, I wouldn't have come out with it. But the idea that like I would sign over and like completely foreclose on my own story is why I didn't sign the NDA, because that's like completely abhorrent to me, to just lock off pieces of your life. And it's partially what this whole project is too. It's like the last 10 years of my life would have basically been this big nothing, this big wallowing mess. And I was dealing with personal issues. Again, it's not all TYT fault whatsoever. It was just some stressful job stuff, certainly made things worse. Beards don't fall out for no reason. Good God, I'd love to maybe build a life where I can get the conditions back where maybe my body will grow its hair back. I'm also losing hair in my head and like in the back here and other parts. It's undiagnosed autism is a rough thing for people. But So like part of doing this whole story too is like to also make something of moving to LA in 2013 and trying to pursue a career in media as either in comedy or filmmaking or, you know, Young Turks political work, advocacy stuff, or just being a grunt in the workforce at TYT was fine as well. I know I was totally okay with paying my dues and stuff, but I'm not blaming Cenk for all those issues in that sense. But the idea that I would never tell the story, which is I find the NDA so like completely off, like wrong to just agree to just shut up, because silence is helpful to the powerful people. They love doing shitty things to somebody, and then knowing that that person will never be able to come forward about it or ever reach any kind of critical mass where it matters. They even try to come forward. So this is the accountability privilege of hierarchy. Cenk is very much a ruling class wannabe. In the documentary, he, you know, as I show, he's talking to Jimmy Dore, and he says that he wants to live in a house just like Obama. Not that it's precisely the house, but like he wants to live in Martha's Vineyard, and where former rulers of the imperial empire retire. It was his aspiration to wealth. And I've seen him defend billionaires and stuff too. It's fucking stupid. But yeah, let me see what I go. Stand for that. I guess maybe had they done the right thing, I would have been okay with that. But anyway. To answer, like, yeah, see, I was starting to trip up my own competing, because a lot of these thoughts do kind of weave back and forth on themselves, and I just want to be consistent, so I wanted to share that more directly. I wasn't intending on doing like a full feature. I was kind of just I had did a podcast about it in March of 2020. I waited until the negotiations were done because I didn't want to be putting stuff out, and that was a year and a half later. I did another podcast, and I realized I needed a shorter version. And while I was working on that, the NLRB notice showed up. Those two podcasts I just referenced are in the TYT related videos. If you go back, I did actually look at one of them. Man, I had a nice beard. God damn it. Hey, look, scroll down. I was looking for a part that I wanted to use the other. So this is the first. Shit, you can't see it. Okay, I know that looks shitty. I just don't feel like OBS gets goofy if you screw with it too much. So this very bottom here is the first one I just referenced. Then I did a year and a half later, after the negotiations were finally finalized, I did this episode, which I think has a pretty nice quality thumbnail. So here oh yeah, this was the part I was looking for when I was in the room with them. Look at my beard. How sad it is. Look, this was me. I think this might be the only time I was ever on camera with Cenk. This is just kind of a little. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. I made this little montage. This here was me doing a folding a fitted sheet demonstration for a fundraiser thing. I'm very good at folding fitted sheets. Lots of domestic skills. I would make a wonderful house husband. If you're a coven of polyamorous kitchen wives, or as I like to call them, pizza oven wives, bring me on. I'll live in the barn. I'll build a pizza oven for all 7 of you, and I'll be a good guy. And then maybe my beard will go back, and we'll have nice long conversations about socialism and Battlestar Galactica. Wouldn't you like to do that? Anybody? I am not fit for this fucking world. But so yeah, I folded a sheet. All the stuff I got to do.
Hi, my name's Hank. I'm an editor here at TYT, and my talent is that I can fold a fitted sheet.
I did that. I did that in one take. This lady was producing it. It was kind of a big deal to get different workers doing different little things and stuff. And I was like, I'll do a fitted sheet thing. And I did that in one take. I nailed it, man. It's probably TYT copyright and stuff, but I did a great job. I made jokes about them, like the corners, because you just got to match up the seams. You just match up the seams. And I talked about how they're like ghosts, and then you flip it over. And then when I lifted up the table here, I don't know if you can hear it, but she didn't expect me to do that because of the camera. Like you couldn't see, it wasn't in the shot. So I was like, I got to fix this. And so it's like, I just picked up the table, which is funny, you know, big, strong, hunky man stuff. You know what I'm saying?
And there you go. Really on. As I can fold a fitted sheet. And there you go. Really on.
Thank you.
Oh, no, I got it.
No, it's not. Oh my
I gotta taste it.
This is how all the world leaders are getting their skin done lately.
It did taste bad. It was not Cheeto mix. It was really bad.
Yeah, somebody detached one and it cost $10,000 in damage.
And then, so they had someone, they said Jesus would get a tattoo on his neck. Obviously, we weren't going to tattoo his neck. So I drew me as a mermaid. the TOT logo.
Sun and the word regret.
Always on a laugh. Look at how handsome I am when I was thin and had a beard, huh? What a bloated. This is why I say I look like something they find at the bottom of a river. These got a big laugh off of that one. There we go. Man, it just breaks my heart that my fucking beard fell out. So this is a mess of a podcast. Let's just go back.
My mailbox. That's this piece of paper right here, which I like to reveal. This hung on TYT's wall for 60 days.
That's my signature move.
They required.
If I become a professional wrestler, I will be the guy who pulls out an LRB. This is their punishment. Slap on the wrist. I mean, this is the trouble you get in. Is you're required to tell the workers that they're allowed to have a union for 60 days using a formal piece of paper. That's some fucking nonsense. This is the consequence Cenk faced. Aside from like the public stuff that's come out and that I'm putting out, but that's just ridiculous. At least fine them like $700. Rich people. So here's another one. We got only a couple more here from the Vanguard.
What I do think, though, is invaluable, man. And again, I hope it works out for you personally. But what is invaluable is that you're providing an education, not only for our audience, but for everyone that watches the Young Turks, everyone who's ever believed a goddamn word that Cenk says. You're letting them know, hey, man, this is false advertising. Cenk is not a progressive boss. TYT is not a progressive company. And that is something that people deserve to know. It's not just juicy gossip. Obviously, we like to get into spilling the hot tea and all that stuff on the Vanguard, but this is like serious.
Hot tea, he said. So it's confirmed it's not just dry leaves.
Serious stuff. Like people should actually know this, not just about TYT, but about the way that corporations work, about the way that bosses treat their employees, even at supposedly progressive companies. I mean, this just feeds into our larger critique of corporate capitalism that we've been talking about at the show, whether it's in the context of TYT or not. Obviously, the fact that it has to do with a show that everyone in our audience is aware of and probably at one point makes it a little bit more scandalous, of course. But I mean, I think what you're doing, Hank, is an absolutely invaluable public service, specifically to people that actually buy into TYT's bullshit.
Well, man, it means so much to hear you guys to hear that. I really appreciate it because, yeah, like I have this kind of righteous fury in me.
Indeed. I appreciate what he said, though, about it being educational. It's one of my goals is that people can watch this. Maybe they've never heard of the Young Turks, and they'll be able to like understand what it means to unionize or some of the tactics bosses use and some of some of the stuff workers might face. It's such a weird, unique circumstance because you had it happened at the Young Turks. Let's just say that the congressional run never happened. It still would be a weird, unique circumstance to do a union organizing drive at the Young Turks based on just the sort of positioning, the where they place themselves within the political world. But the fact that it also happened that the union busting occurred while he's running for Congress during a presidential year, like that's also important to remember, was like this thing touches the Bernie Sanders campaign. And when Bernie endorsed him, it was like the eye of Sauron, the mainstream media just like all going and just opening up the floodgates. Although honestly, I don't think they needed to open the floodgates very much to pull up some of the stuff that was related to Cenk. And in the final version of the film, patreon.com/winners and losers, or in the description, look for the link tree if you want to use PayPal or Coffee. I thought it was Ko-Fi. It's Coffee. It's a donation platform. I thought it was Ko-Fi. Anyway, I just brought that up because I need to finish the movie, and I'm going to do a fundraiser to finish the whole movie. So, but in the final third of it, in the final version, I'm going to have an examination of and I said it in this interview at some point, of the way progressives are attacked, and the Democratic Party is very adept and aggressive and will spend a lot of money and put a lot of resources into keeping progressives out of power. Very much. Absolutely. The Jessica Cisneros one really jumps out. That and the India Walton story, which is she was a mayor of, she was a socialist, not even just a progressive Democrat. She called herself a socialist, and she won the mayor of Buffalo, and then like the Democrat who she beat, I don't know the whole deal, but she got totally hosed, and he ended up winning, and he wasn't supposed to run because he lost the primary. It was something like that. And now that guy has apparently in the last few weeks, I saw news, he was the mayor of Buffalo, New York. He's retiring early from his mayor to work in the crypto industry. It's fucking nonsense. And the Democrats pulled out all the stops to make sure that they didn't have a socialist mayor in a single town. The way this country is so devoted to stopping any level of progress whatsoever is really, really stunning. And in fact, now that I'm just saying that out loud, Cenk Uygur is a part of that. Fighting a union is right-wing conservatism. It's counter-revolutionary in a sense. It means it's if you boil it all down to the hierarchy, it's a union is an attempt to inject democracy into the process, which flattens the hierarchy slightly. And union busting is saying, no, tighten it, squeeze those bolts. There's you know what a turnbuckle bolt is? They're really cool. That's this weird contraption that will make two bolts tighten or loosen. It's really wonderful. Why am I thinking of turnbuckles? I spent so much time in the Home Depot parts. I used to design and install aquariums professionally. So like I've spent so much time at hardware stores buying stuff. And you know, I love, oh God, what the fuck was I just talking about? I want to do woodworking again. I think I might try to do a little bit of woodworking every week. Just to sort of use up some of the wood I've got, but also I got to be really careful about my wrists. I have to wrap them up anyway, what am I getting at? That drives this. Okay, whatever. I just totally walked myself off a cliff there. I don't know what the fuck I was talking about. So let's jump to this next one here. We're getting close to the end of the Vanguard's chunk, and then we'll read some comments from this video, and then we'll also jump over to the movie on my channel and read those comments, because that's actually that's a big part here that I've been looking forward to doing. The knowledge, as I said in my piece, like this, not all stories are confirmable, but very few stories are this confirmable. They weren't interested in telling their audience the truth. Great line. Is it douchey to quote yourself? Not all stories are confirmable, but very few. I can't even say the words, because the truth would have meant they would have had to talk about the reasons their workers unionized. And that would show that Cenk Uygur does not live his principles at all. You can't tell me that he believes what he says when you go work for the guy and he calls you part-time while you're working 40-hour weeks.
This is something that I think is really revealing, given the evolution of the network that we have been discussing often on this podcast, right? Gavin and I have been doggedly, demonstrating how even over the last 4 years, they have moved demonstrably to the right. And I think it comes back to the fact that
it's pronounced demonstrably, Zach. Grow up. Just
do not have any ideological conviction. They do not actually care about uplifting their employees. They do not actually care about these progressive values. They do not actually care about any of it. What did Cenk see? An opportunity to make money.
I appreciate that he actually stuck his finger in his mouth.
2015.
Right. That takes a lot of commitment, because now you got a wet finger.
Did Cenk see?
Look, it's really in his mouth. You don't have to go all the way in the mouth. Why do I feel like I'm judging? I hope this doesn't come off like judging. I'm really not. I hope I can hang out with these guys at some point in the future. I imagine if I stay alive over the next 10 years, I probably somehow, maybe, they'll visit the West Coast or something. Not to visit me. That'd be crazy. But like, they'll be like, oh, we're in LA, something like that. My point is though, that you could just go, what am I doing? You know what? Maybe you do have to put it in your mouth. But now you got a wet finger and it's gross. Rub it on your pants. Clothes are just napkins you wear.
An opportunity to make money. In 2015,
right.
he was like, holy shit, if we become the progressive network, we are going to revel in an untapped market. I'm going to buy a bigger house. I am going to be able to get outside investment, something that the Young Turks were desperate for, but hadn't yet achieved. And you can see this with Ana Kasparian talking about how she doesn't like homeless people, how she doesn't like being around seeing drug addicts out in Los Angeles. She doesn't want to be around trans people. She thinks it's a huge issue that she was called a birthing person on a form when none of us have ever seen that form. And for as much as she talks about it, she would have definitely made it public, right? So anyway, we've seen all of this, and it just comes back to a fact that they're not rooted in progressive values. Everything is a lie. It is a charade. It is pseudo progressive politics to take your fucking dollars away from you. It's absolute horseshit. And we're really sorry that you were caught up in the middle of this, Hank, but we're also tremendously grateful, as Gavin was saying, that you had the courage to do this, man, that you had the courage to be this relentless, that you had the courage to come on our show multiple times. And it's working, dude. The last time you came on our show, Gavin and I think you said we had 500 lives. Now we have 2,800 live viewers that are ready to hear your story, and probably 50,000 more tomorrow when we cut this into a clip.
So I'm just reading the transcript below this. Okay, I fucking didn't go back and fix it. God damn it. Oh shit. So I was watching the transcript below here, and this is the stuff that I was looking for. I couldn't find it, so I'm glad this is open. So Gavin, I think, jumps in with a good point here after Zach talks. Not that Zach's not making good points, but just a congratulations to the Vanguard. They were doing live streams with 500. I would be absolutely gobsmacked if I could get 40 people to watch a live stream. I used to do some. I'd get like 2 or 3, and they were like people from the Suck Professor days. I kind of want to try that again, but I just don't. I know I just won't be able to sustain the consistency that you need, so I'm kind of avoiding it. But to go for the Vanguard, it's been booming, man. They've been jumping up. Their subscriber counts like 54. They crossed 50 like a week ago. Like they're climbing up really nicely, and 2,800 live viewers on a channel with 54,000 or 50 whatever it was at the time of this. Congratulations to them. That's cool, and it's always cool to. I've been in their chat a decent bit, and I've been watching their show for a while. They cover a lot of I first probably tuned into them from when they're talking TYT versus Jimmy Dore during the Force the Vote kind of era, which is somehow still not dead. The online left is just this huge, weird mess. But 2,800 live people watching this thing. I see much bigger channels that get maybe that or 5,000 but they're like millions of subscribers. TYT, I think. I don't have the numbers in front, but I've seen 8,000, 13,000, maybe 20 on a really, really busy day, perhaps, but they don't get any. I don't think they really get numbers like that. So good job, Vanguard. Keep growing. You guys are doing good. Here, let's go with some more. Because I think it's Gavin takes over and says something that I hadn't thought of.
People are pissed. People know that the Young Turks wronged you and countless other people, and they're going to get their comeuppance, bro.
Yep. And I think it's also really important to do what you're doing, Hank. Again, even if you just remove everyone that we know, yourself, personalities, whatever. What happened when this story went public and people found out that TYT tried to bust their union, that Cenk was an attempted union buster? Guess what happened, man? It was really depressing. A bunch of freaking right-wing outlets like the Daily Wire and stuff like that. What did they do? They published articles saying, see, look, even the quote-unquote progressives are admitting unions aren't serious. They're not good for business. That's why Cenk, as a business owner, tried to bust his union. See, proof. Even the left is full of shit. And
so that's really spot on. That's a great wider angle view of like the damage Cenk did by being a union buster, by doing this thing, by it's yet another flange. I probably should have said buttress. Also not the best word for my case, that it was such a stupid, destructive thing to say no to the union at all for so many reasons. For his own personal interest being the number one reason. Like that should have been enough to overcome your, desire to not have your workers have a union there. Absolutely crazy. Because even if the union busting works, you're a union buster now. Especially if you take Cenk's definition of what a union buster is, according to the Hansi phone call, which is that you're only a union buster if you successfully bust a union, which is fucking bullshit. Just like I say, I'm still a fisherman just because I don't catch fish. I never catch fish. I caught one in 2014. It looked at me and I threw it back in the water. No, I've caught some fish. I think I'm better at it than my dad is. I don't believe that at all. But what the fuck was I just saying?
That's terrible for the left. That's terrible for the left, because we know that Cenk and Ana aren't real lefties. We know that they don't give a shit about their workers. We know they don't give a shit about workers' rights. Your story is proof of that. But a lot of people out there, to them, they do think of Cenk and Ana as being what an actual progressive looks like. They think of them as being the furthest.
So the point he's saying there, and I really appreciated that, is that, the wide angle here is it gave the right wing a lot of fodder for coming after unions as an example of how unions are. It's really close to here, right here. Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro both did articles, or both did videos where they like were making fun of TYT for being union busters. Yeah, there it is. This is their headlines. Cenk Uygur exposes himself as the biggest hypocrite ever on Ben Shapiro's show. And then, haha, TYT's union busting exposed, louder with Crowder. I thought I had highlighted the yellow on I was trying to make hypocrisy the, okay, anyway. Well, I'll fix that in the full version. And maybe we'll find those videos and we'll play those on a future podcast. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that. I definitely would be, that'd probably be interesting to see Ben Crowder, to watch Ben Crowder react to this thing. So good on you, Zach. Great point. Let's just let him wrap it up a little bit here.
This left person.
Did I say Zach? I meant to say Gavin. I get their names confused. Sorry, guys.
There in the Overton window of American discussion, right? So when they saw those articles, when they saw those headlines, and they see people like Ben Shapiro saying, "See, we told you, unions aren't serious." Even TYT tried to bust theirs because they know how bad it is for business. It's just such a bad look for the left, and it blows my mind. It kills me that Jake couldn't have just said, "You know what? I will sacrifice a couple extra dollars to make this fucking point, to live our values, to walk the walk that we talk, and to actually set an example. Hey, look, a progressive company can not just survive, but flourish while taking care of its workers. A progressive company can take care of the people that make this show possible, pay them properly, compensate them, and not only will we survive, but it'll actually make the show better. We all know that when workers are happy somewhere, they're going to work harder. They're going to, care more about doing a good job for the people that they're working for." This all seems obvious to me, and it's just such a missed opportunity that Cenk and TYT had to go the way that they did. And of course, people like you get caught up in it, and now you're having to deal with this all these years later. It's really a messed up situation, man. But really do appreciate you, doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So really great point. I really appreciated what he said there about the damage, the ammo that Cenk delivered, nicely packaged to his right-wing foes. Really nice gift. Nice gift to those folks. The list of people who this thing hurt is so much longer than the list of people who it helped. As far as I can tell, the only entity that got helped was the union-busting law firms, assuming they weren't working pro bono. And eventually the workers, after 18 months of negotiation, got raises and got some other protections and stuff. So I guess they were benefited as well. But just saying yes to the union would have saved everybody so much fucking trouble. It's just to not have the awareness too of like the political world, like that there's a trend. It should have been obvious to someone who's as online as much as Cenk, who pays such close attention to stuff. Maybe this reveals a blind spot. Even just having proximity to his nephew Hassan as the most famous online progressive socialist guy, screaming about, I don't think he would call himself progressive, but Hassan is huge. He's enormously more famous and popular and wealthier than Cenk. But for Cenk to not have a sense of the backlash that might come from becoming a union buster, or just the fact that labor is one of the few sectors of our culture and our world, particularly as we're looking down the barrel of two horrible candidates to become president. Obviously, the Trumps are by far worse than the Harris administration is going to be, but the Harris administration is still capitalism. It's still the corruption, genocide, imperial warmongering. She's embracing Dick Cheney. She's not going to do anything for healthcare. There still means environmental collapse. It still means all this horrible, wretched stuff. There will be some things that are hopefully improved. Women's rights, obviously, being a massive one, of course, and I would argue the administrative state itself, the apparatus underneath it. So there are actually measurable and substantive differences there, obviously, but that's because the Republicans are just absolutely horrid. These are the descendants of the ideology that inspired Hitler. Hitler was looking to become an American-style, mature ethno-state that had its minorities locked up exactly where they want them, either gone, dead, or subjugated, precisely where they need to be. Which is why in the late 20s and the early 30s, the Nazi Party was having all kinds of not just communication, but cooperation and coordination and business transactions with major capitalist institutions in America. There's a lot of writing about that. So the labor movement is still alive, though, because it's always going to be alive. They want to kill it as much as they can, but they're never going to stop using labor. Well, that points at my whole other theory about the robot replacement thing that I believe that they would do. My foundation for that is that it'll solve their problems. Their problem is they want labor, but their problem is that only humans can currently perform the labor that they need done. And if they could find a different being to do the labor, that solves all their problems. You could easily have a world, not easily, let's not say that, but you could have a world where it's 1 million to 2 million wealthy beneficiaries of the ruling class, the vestige of America, not America, of the globe, of the global population, overseeing continent-wide factories, continent-spanning factory systems and farming systems and robot toil, and there's all kinds of crazy stuff that's going to go on. I think it's a bit more complicated. It's unlikely. I think we'll have major collapses. We'll balkanize into regional warlord powers around freshwater lakes as climate change forces things to get worse and worse and worse, especially when the Atlantic current shuts down, which is already starting. We're so fucked, man. So yeah, but labor, in terms of just, should Cenk have known that there's a whole massive constituency is not the right word, of people who have, and this is also something I've gained in my consciousness over the last several years too, of course, even before like TYT stuff. Michael Brooks had a lot to do with this too, as far as I describe TYT as kind of a cul-de-sac. You can only burrow through away from Cenk's 90s republicanism towards something that you'd call progressive far enough. If you don't abandon your capitalism and if you're not open to being persuaded out of that stuff, you end up reaching a point where you can't burrow anymore. You hit the cul-de-sac. And so no wonder Anna is moving herself down the road back towards the right, in a sense. Not that it's super straightforward and linear there. Cenk's never going to get out of that. I was sort of trapped in it. I wouldn't say I wasn't like, oh no, I'm trapped in the cul-de-sac. But my consciousness was raised by exposure to like socialism and Marxism and those other kind of concepts that I had this instinctive, well, let's not say instinctive, that's not true, culturally conditioned response to, that I thought were like, not that I was like, socialism bad. Marxism would have hit me in a slightly more alarming tone. But I'm self-aware enough to be like, well, what am I scared? I don't even know what those are. Like, I barely early on, I don't actually, I just know that it's something, as an American who grew up in the Midwest, went to public schools and, pretty ordinary suburban, Midwestern lifestyle filled with fucked up white people, would have been conditioned to be like a little like, oh no, oh my God, communism, socialism, oh my God, these words are such boogeymen until you just learn some of the basics. And it's not scary. And I have a disposition towards it anyway, because I believe that all humans deserve dignity and, the right to be who they are authentically and to belong to some. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, but it's the lack of Cenk's knowledge that being a union buster would probably be so bad that your option to say yes would have been preferable blows my mind. The TOT audience would have loved him for it, and they could have done a fundraiser even if I don't think they necessarily needed to do a fundraiser. They never did a fundraiser to pay people union rates, but if they did, they could have said, we're doing this together. My workers wanted a union. I said yes, and I'm going to ask my audience to turn up and help out and pitch in and be part of this. Help us, let's be honest here, guys. It's going to cost us more money, so I'm going to ask my audience for more money. They would have flooded the coffers with money to live their principles, to support the Young Turks. It would have been such a positive. And then when he runs for political office later, just stunningly stupid. So anyway, appreciate the Vanguard. Let's scroll down here. All right. So top comment. If you get them in early, you get to be on the top list here. But someone wrote, I just quit a corporate sports bar yesterday for making me work 13 hours, no break, no food, pregnant. Oh man, that sucks. And under a frown, an upside down smiley face. That's a bad. Well, pregnant. That's fucking culture, man. People are commenting on Anna and stuff. Here's the one I was referring to. Ashleyan3 wrote, I'll admit I was duped by Cenk's claim that and duped is all caps, claim that the union was an establishment ploy. Apologies to all the employees who were exploited by TYT. I think this is the one I wrote a response to. Hank here. What am I doing? I wrote, no need to apologize or feel this is something you have to confess to. You trusted the guy. Thank you for sharing, though. In these years working on this, I hope that more people will get their heads around my project, that I'd see stories like yours, since a big reason I was compelled to do this is knowing how many people were misled. And oh my God, I'm so long-winded. And the idea that TYT's audience deserves to be told the truth, or at least I had a strong sense of that. So I'm glad to see I might not be wrong. It validates my case that the conspiracy narrative worked to a variety of degrees, which is meaningful to the argument I'm making. It's supportive, truly. So thank you. Cheers. I could have just said this, like the first sentence plus this last sentence. So did anybody respond? Okay. I don't know. I haven't read all these here. Someone wrote, the fact that TYT wasn't worker owned and unionized from the start is a red flag, honestly. That should be a default founding principle of a so-called progressive company business like they say they are. So glad I haven't donated to them in 5+ years. Yeah, I can kind of get that. I'm not obviously I'm not a capitalist guy, and if I would love to see a world where we eradicate the horror of capitalism, but I don't necessarily think that a media company in the current mode of our world should only be worker owned and unionized. But I would love to live in a world where this was absolutely true, in a sense. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it would be great to see that, like, by default, we had worker ownership and unionization and worker participation in their own lives. And it would, like, I want to see a world where we're like, that fucking asshole there thinks he should, like, is a fucking capitalist. Like, that is so weird. Why would you do that? We cut that shit out long time. Like I want it to be like this antiquated thing at some point. So yeah, I can but I understand the sentiment for sure. Another person wrote, I've unsubscribed from TOT at this point. I've had a gut feeling that the winds were blowing in a different direction over there for some time. And at this point, they're basically circling the drain. Not to say they're completely finished at this point, but I think a lot of people are feeling disillusioned with them and voluntarily walking away from them. Yep. Cenk should be another one. Cenk should be ashamed at what he's done to his company. Many people like myself got into politics because of TYT, and he and Anna has destroyed all of that. Shame on you. Or someone says, wild to see all this as a former member from years ago. I ended up leaving TYT in first Trump term, turned off membership. Then 5 to 7 years later, I see Anna pulling a Fox News host. Laughing, crying emoji. Cenk used to do good in being a strong lefty who still was also a capitalist, but I guess the capitalism won. Unionization should be baked into employment laws and we should house people. Yeah. So people kind of parsing it out. I'm just going to scroll it. Okay, here's good. Yeah, I haven't see. Chris W443 writes, I did contract work for years because I charged extra for it. Getting paid less to have less benefits is severely fucked. Just a correction. Not less benefits, 0 benefits. But yeah. Yeah, I was paid less per hour than people who got benefits. Not by much. $21.63 was my rate. So, like, yeah, you know, workers, this is Cenk. Workers should stand up for themselves. Workers need to be strong. Workers need collective bargaining. Workers, and then he runs his business in a way that forces his workers to stand up for themselves. But yeah, I appreciate that this person validates that. I'm going to click on the like button there. Someone wrote here, Anna's departure from the left is equivalent to someone announcing they're leaving a Facebook group. No one cares. All right. Laughing, crying emoji. Fair. Canceled my TYT, another person, Eldon787 writes, canceled my TYT subscription today. This is wild. Now subbed here. All right. Hell yeah. I mean, hell yeah to the subbing. I want TYT to sustain. Like, I know people who work there, and I have friends who have jobs there, right? Like, I still think there's some role for TYT in this ecosystem. It's definitely changing drastically. I could go on and on about this like, I've had a lot of thoughts about this thing I'm about to go off about, so I'm going to restrain myself for a sec. But I don't want TOT to be I want accountability, and I want a retraction of the narrative. Cenk to say anything about it will bring a lot of attention to the story, which is good, but so like he's incentivized to never talk about it. Thus his lie, his gaslighting his audience when Hansi called to call him a union buster. But I don't want to see them coming down crashing and burning. I feel like I think they provide a decent amount of media training, or let's say like practice, or at least first exposures to candidates and stuff, or at least in the past that might have been true. I know I watch this world pretty closely, so I'm fairly well aware of all the various reasons people are feeling a lot of upset with the Young Turks at this time, and there's a massive correction going on in the type of audience that they're currently trying to attract, probably for the better. Sadly, in this country, there's likely to be a bigger audience of sort of center left-ish / right-wing kind of frame acceptance. Like, I don't necessarily see, I didn't mean to go on, but like reaching out to Republicans and to try to like sort of shift the aggression at which you approach conversations with Republicans isn't necessarily a bad idea, and stuff and such. But anyway, whatever. Let's see here. Someone says, Benjamin Universe says, TYT is literally a small business. Any way you count TYT is considered a small business. In some ways, they're a victim of their success. They have a very polished looking show on purpose to give it credibility, and people think they're loaded. Yeah. I mean, 80 employees. Cenk's income in 2018 was $327,000, according to his FEC filings. I know that they have executives teams, but I still think that like a union should be answering a boss using classification trickery to deny a full-time worker benefits is a good reason for a union. And union negotiations don't want to destroy the company. You have to operate within what's reasonable, what can be expected, and what's fair. And people doing professional video editing deserve more than $21.60 in Los Angeles, even in 2019, 2020, deserve more pay per hour than $21.63. So like, yeah, but this is a fairly boilerplate kind of reaction about small businesses. Unions might not necessarily be the perfect solution in all cases. I would actually like to see a world with the end of capitalism, where we don't have even where I want to see sectoral bargaining for not to say for every single job, but for numerous types of professions. There's no like being a janitor in one company is the same as being a janitor at a different company. Yes, there's little details here and there, but cleaning hotel rooms doesn't really change whatever kind of fucking hotel you're at. Obviously, there's nuances to that, but like that's what sectoral bargaining does. It says if you're in this overall field of work, this is the union. That's a much more stronger way for workers to flatten the hierarchy out. But yeah, that's fine. Guy writes, yikes, he willingly went to Jimmy Dore and Dave Rubin. I can't take this dude seriously. Yeah, that's funny. I don't know what the Dave Rubin thing is. I didn't willingly do anything with Dave Rubin. I know Dave. I mean, Dave Rubin might know my name, but no, I've had conversations with Dave Rubin plenty of times. He did a stand-up show I'd also performed at, which is a story I was wanting to call into the Michael Brooks show to tell, because I know he would have had a fun time hearing that. Jimmy Dore, yeah, that's fine. I needed the work in 2015 when Jimmy called me to start his channel back up in like November of 2015. I was desperate, man. I was not doing well. I haven't been doing well. Someone writes here, I just figured out why I don't watch TOT, because it's their grievance politics. Constant whining is the same as Republicans. Okay. Let's just go ahead here. Sound of Azure says, I'd heard about union busting at TOT, but didn't know any details. That's wild. See? Didn't know the details. The cloud worked. Oh boy, this is a longer one. All right, we'll read it. Let's do it. Then I'll do like two more and then we'll jump to the other one. I hope this isn't boring. Hadley Torres 8171 writes, I gave TYT so much credit for my interest in and progression of my political ideals. I listened to them daily, from John to the live show with Cenk and Ana, from the late 00s through the ass end of the Trump administration. Then as I began getting more bothered and pissed off about everything politics, it had a very pronounced effect on my mental health. Boy, do I relate. I decided to pick one of the political shows I was loyal to stop being so engaged in something I had little power over. I chose a Majority Report. In 2020, I quit listening to TYT, and my mental health changed over a period of a couple weeks. Looking at it now, I see that their presentation is no different than CNN or Fox in the way they play on people's emotions to solidify loyalty to them rather than the ideals they espouse. Looking back now, aside from my own mental health, I'm so glad I disengaged. Anna is obviously shit, and hearing this about Cenk makes me think he's held on to his Republican past wholeheartedly. Perhaps he left MSNBC because they didn't offer him the money he thought he was entitled to, much like every other Republican in this disgusting country in which we reside. Edit, he writes, as a union pipe fitter and pipe welder, this issue is a big deal to me. Keep up the fight, brothers and sisters. Thank you, union homie. Union pipe fitting, pipe welding. I'm only going to use some words because I was tangential to some like plumbing stuff when I was doing fish tanks. Because fish tanks are kind of like partly a plumber. It's about moving water around very safely and fixing leaks. And so I was pretty good with PVC and shit, but like proper like building construction pipe union work is really a whole beast of its own. But I do remember seeing these dudes melting lead for making hokum and lead fittings with cast iron pipes. Hokum is like I think it's like a hemp type substance. It's like an old timey technique. And so you have the flange opens up on a pipe that's like the female end, and then the other pipe sits in there, male end, and you pack it with hokum, this fiber, and then you use this guy was like melting a puck of lead. I saw this guy like lighting up this thing, because I kind of chat with the construction dudes. This is years back. And I was like, what the fuck? And he goes, yeah, that's like that lead. And then the lead melts and then they pour it into that spit. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. So they pour the lead into the hokum and then it does a great job welding it. I think it was lead. Probably was. Boy, man, this country. Talk about the cognitive. We'll never know the opportunity cost of the lead poisoning and the plastic poisoning and all the other pollution and the ways our bodies don't properly fully form in a gestational sense, compared to the high ideal of a human body getting properly nutrition and, the mother living in a safe, healthy, cared for environment in terms of the healthiest possible environment you could produce for the way a baby grows. What am I saying? What the fuck, Hank? Okay, so maybe I'll come back and read some of this later on. A couple more here. Cenk is TYT is canceled. That should have been a worker cooperative from the very start. Yeah, I agree, starting a media company, I wouldn't be able to run a capitalist thing here. But starting out in 2005 as a worker cooperative from Cenk was never going to be a thing. Never. Not from the Wharton School of Business. Oh, well, speaking of that, person writes, Cenk is a Penn Wharton jerk. I know, I am Wharton 87. That's funny. He was 91. There were plenty of jerks there. TOT always had a business model. It was always about making big money. Anna too. You point this out in minute 36. Good. Oh, okay, I see. So he's commenting while I'm doing it. Yeah. Well, there's lots of there in the video. Yeah. So if you feel like torturing yourself more, I imagine some people are dialed in on this story. Go to Penn State or /Wharton website. I'm not sure precisely which one, and search for Cenk Uygur columnists. Search for Cenk Uygur, those old blogs that he wrote. He was like college, it's not fair to hold it all against him, but it gave you a pretty interesting, because his pieces are still up. I think there's at least 3, maybe more. One of them is referenced a lot as the stuff that he had to apologize for. But I'm trying to remember the details, so I'm not going to say it since I'm not getting a great, my brain's not pulling up the file quite properly right now. But I do recall one of them that I've never seen anybody make a stink about. Not that you need to make a stink about something the guy wrote when he was 20, but it's just an interesting kind of archaeological find, I guess, is all about Anita Hill. She a clerk, or she's a lawyer now, I'm pretty sure. But she's the woman who they had a bunch of hearings regarding Clarence Thomas's approval to the Supreme Court. That's where we got the pubes on a Coke can thing. But his whole thing was just hating on Anita Hill. So he's come a long way, I guess. But some similarities to the Ben Shapiro kind of ambitions. Ben Shapiro also set out to be a Hollywood screenwriter, as did Cenk. I guess Cenk, I've heard him say he was in a union at some point, like a Hollywood screenwriter. He wrote comedy or something like that. I know I'm going way deep. Who knows exactly what that was, but like before he even started the Young Turks is what I think. All right, so here's someone writing. Dude, and this will be the last one to read. I really want to come back and read more of these though, but dude, I work in broadcasting and I've never had a salary as low $21 an hour as a freelancer. That's insane. The only time I had an offer that low was for a shitty local news like New Jersey 12. Usually the industry standard for freelancer pay is freelancer pay should be what salary staffers get for time and a half in order to make up for not getting benefits. Yeah, I mean, that's the basics. That's just it. Someone wrote, for context, my bruv, at his same time period, I was making $20 an hour, but I was merely working at FedEx, and I live in the craptastic South where no one else wants to live, so my money stretched and went further. Dude only made $1 an hour more than me in California. Did he ever eat back then? It's about the only thing I could afford to do. Someone wrote, I thought he made less than that, and that was the industry standard. Maybe I'm not understanding correctly. However, living in LA, it would be doable if you lived with someone, otherwise you would be on the street. Well, until COVID hit, there's like no toilet paper in the stores, and the price of food went up due to price gouging. Okay. Yeah, so it's nice to see that too. 21 people are talking about that. We're going to skip all the other shit in this podcast except for the next chunk. So let's just hear Zach and Gavin's final wrap up. What the fuck? We've gone this far.
Into play some more of the work.
I'm going, man.
For sure. Bye, everybody. I'll see y'all in the chat. I'll be saying dumb things in there.
Sweet. Peace out, bro. All right. That was an awesome conversation. Super grateful that Hank took the time to come and join us and kind of walk us through that documentary. Very well edited documentary. Editing is work.
Hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. I really do. It's an important story. Hank, he's a fact-based guy. Yes, he's been through a lot of personal turmoil as it relates to this whole situation. But if you watch his documentary, it's not just like the manifesto of some disgruntled ex-employee of a company. No, he breaks down specifics, facts, receipts over and over again to a pretty undeniable point. And again, some people in chat, they're like, why do you care so much about Cenk and Ana? Why are you so invested in purity testing? I'm not. I don't give a shit. You guys can watch TYT. If anyone's in our chat who's a TYT super fan, go for it. Keep watching. I don't care, man. You can do whatever you want. You can watch whatever you want. But I do think it's important that you know when you watch TYT, and then when you click on one of their videos, and when you hear Cenk running his mouth about how much he supports workers' rights, yeah, I do think it's important that you guys know that. And again, I'm not telling you to stop watching TYT. It's probably better you watch TYT than a lot of other media companies, Fox News, CNN. I mean, yeah, sure. It's definitely not the worst out there. But I do think it's really important to understand that context.
Yeah. So that was a thought that I had there. I can't think of it right now. Yeah. Well said. Well said, guys. Thank you. So let's jump over to here. This is the moment I've been waiting for. Getting rid of this notifications thing up here. I'm going to click on it. It's going to show me a bunch of shit. The first one. These videos are too rambly for me to follow. That's fair. I totally agree with that. All right, so the notification is gone. What a thrill. Let's click it over to the bigger ones. It's easy to read. I should have done that a little bit sooner. We have all this, the top ones at first, so we don't have a bunch. Okay, we do have some 9 days ones here. Okay, so YouTube does its own sorting thing. So this is going to be a bit all over the place. I kind of wish, I mean, I know I can do newest and just go from there. This might do it, but we'll come back. This will be a bit jumbled. Watching this after the Vanguard interview, someone writes, I'm going to click on like. Same here. This channel deserves support. Me 3, me 4, me 5. So disgusted. Awesome. Everybody gets a like. Thank you, guys. I kind of want to reply to everybody, but then I just feel like I look insane when I do that. Someone writes here 9 days ago. So this is from the Vanguard. I remember the time Cenk Uygur was trying to get a flight and it was delayed, leaving him frustrated and angry. But what he did in the airport really was disgusting. He started ranting and raving and shouting at an employee working behind the desk about his flight being delayed. He was spitting feathers. All the while he was recording it on his phone and then broadcasting it out on TYT. The incident told me all I needed to know what he really thought about worker rights. Yeah, that's one of those like ugly incidences, or he doesn't come off good at all.
No, but they told us that 4 hours ago. Is it actually coming? Lie after lie. Is it actually coming? Because I literally heard it was coming from the hangar 3 hours ago. Hey, listen, I don't want to get into a fight with you guys, but you guys are wrong. If we hadn't gotten up in there grill, you think she would have called her fucking boss? Maybe not. She wouldn't have called her boss. No, maybe not. See, there'd be no fucking plane from a hangar.
I don't think that we can get in someone else's grill when it's not necessarily his fault. He's trying to do the best he can, and he actually handled the job very well. For someone to be yelled at and to not want to throw a punch back, that takes a man. And to me, that man acted pretty.
Their job is to get the flight here. I mean, if
so if your job was to do your job, and someone came to you and said, "Sir, your job, you're shitty. I don't like your job. You're doing terrible," would you not say, "Bro, I know how to do my job. Don't try me." You would defend yourself.
My brother, people say that I do a shitty job every day. Thousands of them do every day. Man, I keep going back and forth between angry and amused. This shit is crazy, dog. Okay? Rhonda, I'm with you, man. I tape the guy sitting because what is going on there, right? Okay. And I'm hungry and I'm tired, and so, like, you know me, I get more agitated when I'm hungry and tired. So, look, if you guys think this is bad, wait till, if that plane doesn't actually come from the hangar in 20 minutes.
But yeah, it's you could look for it, Cenk Uygur Airport meltdown or something like that. Okay, here's one of 7 months ago. Here because of Vanguard, staying because of your content. Awesome, thank you. I'm gonna click on like on that one. After I watched this video, Spanish Dog 17 says it makes. How's it looking over there? It makes Dave Rubin, Anna, and Jimmy Dore's turn to the right seem less surprising. Thank you, appreciate that. Wow, didn't know anything about this until the Vanguard interview. Someone writes pretty much the same with me. Stopped watching TYT regularly around 10 years ago. All I did know was talk about Cenk being a union buster. Didn't know the details behind it. Y'all getting thumbs up. Y'all getting thumbed up. Someone wrote there. That's 7 months, 9 days. Vanguard brought me here. Hell yeah. Okay, so excellent work. Thank you so much for exposing these frauds. All right, we'll just keep scrolling this way. You get a thumbs up. Thank you, TWAS2692. Be whole. I would think TOT would encourage reporting such as this if it were about any other company. I totally agree. Completely agree. Okay, really great stuff. Let's see, now I'm getting, this is Bell Vegas J. Okay, someone writes, it's awesome work. It is awful that this happened to you and other workers at TYT, but let's turn your project into the headshot it deserves to be. I'm going to the Patreon so we can get this in full. Okay. I'm writing. Okay, I shouldn't be doing this on the podcast here. So let's just keep reading a bit more. I'll come back and like answer these. So someone writes, great vid. I was not aware. I wonder if Haas will pick it up for commentary. Man, I sure hope so. That would be great. I mean, it's literally like his foundation of labor is these workers, including me. I did, like, as I said earlier, like there's one person who did the vast majority of it, but I was one of his editors. He was kind of annoying to edit for because he was busy doing his thing on Twitch. I know he was, I don't know. I mean, it's not like he showed me the numbers, but I'm pretty sure at the time he was making way more money per month on Twitch, even back in 2019, than he was making per year at TYT, I think. So he had this super annoying 2 or 3 days a week job at his uncle's media company that required him like research and write a script, show up, take the time, drive across LA. It's such an annoying town to get around in. Film it, then go home, get on Twitch, start streaming, and then he'd have to answer texts from his editor if there were clarifications. And he was required to do this like so like Haas was, I'm going to use the word fired, but it wasn't like he like laid off, I guess is a better term. Like the same day I was, that was like just their formal ended their relationship between the 4 people that were let go that day were me and then Frances Maxwell and Brooke Thomas, who's now like a local news LA morning show. She's really talented, really, really great. I don't know what Frances is up to. And Haas, but like Haas was already like way checked out. It's not like he got like laid off for being some, but like he was definitely it was very clear to everybody that he was like on his way out because his Twitch thing was going bonkers. What's the word I'm looking for? Balderdash. There's a word there. Mind is blown right now. Someone writes. Well, there's a lot of good stuff in here, so you can see I was replying. Here's one. Saw you on Vanguard. Don't doubt yourself, brother. You're effing courageous. Not many would this. Cool. Appreciate that. I'm gonna come back and click on the likes here, guys. So don't worry. Just watched you on the Vanguard. Love the conversation. Here to watch the rest of your doc. You are brilliant. Remind me of Dogpack 404, Righteous Anger for Mr. Beast. Workers' Rights. Fist emoji. Never heard of that. I'll have to look up Dogpack 404. The more Cenk keeps feeling the need to remind us how honest he is, the more I worry about the ethics behind the scenes. Yeah. That's the beige. Oh, the one right just before this was Sarah McLean 1039. Here we got the beige sheep 6132. Yeah, I think about that a lot too. There's nothing I can really actionably say in terms of proof of whatever, but it does kind of, once you sort of really get your head around this whole story and the extent of his dishonesty about it, it's, particularly with the Hansi call, with the union buster, with him saying, no, I'm definitely not a union buster. That stuff is absolutely like it really reframes, it really changes the kind of lens that with which you look at how much he talks about how honest they are. Just be honest. I mean, say it every once in a while, I guess. But you say you're honest by doing like proper fact checking and by like retracting stories when you get them wrong. Nobody expects Cenk and Ana to be perfect and to never get a detail wrong, especially the kind of reporting that they do. Or they're just regurgitating, other reporting into the camera and then giving their opinion. You're going to get some stuff wrong at some point, for sure. Ana is currently on her own kind of journey to, I've heard her say stuff like this, so that's why I'm saying it. But like of how she feels like she misled people at TYT because of the ways that she was consuming her media diet, and then she's expanded it now, and now she's sort of making the shifts that she's making. But I really would love that if her effort to adjust her or to correct for the wrongs of the past that she seems to be very heartfelt. I don't think she's being insincere. People can take issue with whether she's right or wrong, for instance, but I don't think it's insincere so much. I hope that it eventually includes this story, because I gotta imagine like a former worker making a documentary and you're in it because you helped a dude like smear the workers at this media. Like this has got to be a much bigger deal. I'm curious if she knows about it. I have no idea. Came here from the Vanguard, anti-social rights. That's a great name. Came here from the Vanguard. Subscribe because I like your stuff, and I'm really annoyed and dismayed and disgusted by how TYT has evolved. As I said over on the Vanguard, capitalist greed is a hell of a drug. No doubt. That's for sure. Couple more here. 3 of 8, 197. I only got back into politics around 2020, so I missed all this. I wasn't sure what was going on and skipped this for the COVID and election drama. It's good to know the history of this drama. I think there was a reason why TYT gave me bad vibes seeing this. All right. Someone right here found the content of the New York Times smear toward the end very interesting, but I'm not sure how it moves the story forward. Maybe that becomes clearer in part 2. Keep up the good work. Yeah, that's fair. It does become much clearer. Oh, this is interesting. So someone that was Big B.I. Bicycle Dave. And then Denus Norder answers Bicycle Dave. I am the same. It was a smear, but I don't quite get it. Is it to tell that all these other creators are also scumbags? What is the aim here? Yeah, I've seen this too. Like people seem to have, I'm not sure I describe this person as taking an issue. It's a fair question. This is a really reasonable question. That like the ethical dark web is what they're referring to. Kind of is me taking shots at those guys, and I guess in the overall kind of tone, kind of I hope it's funny. I hope I want to see someone say it was funny and entertaining, because I was trying for that too, as well as like this kind of righteous fury sort of feeling as well. But so clearly, like to some degree, the tone of the ethical dark web, where Joe Rogan, David Doyle, Humanist Report, Sam Cedar, Mike Ferriero is the Humanist Report. who else? Sahil Habibi and Jeff Waldorf are kind of like Kyle Kalinski's like the leader of that pack. They were never anything formal. I labeled them the ethical dark web because they took an umbrage with the way the New York Times smeared TYT. And so to like when I come back to this, I'm going to answer this guy is like the New York Times smear is very relevant because it becomes a thing Cenk mentions over and over in his fundraising. He even mentions it during his presidential campaign. But I'm using that precisely as a way to contrast the ways that a powerful, famous talk show host media guy, Cenk, had an entire cavalry of prominent online commentators show up to kind of go to bat for him because he was wrongfully smeared. Fine. Good story. That's also like, no, I'm not trying to call them scumbags, but maybe my tone is goofy. I know that I come at Mike Figueredo a little aggressively with the one chunk about people that were misled. But that's not the aim at all. But because the Cenk experienced the cavalry showing up for the New York Times smear, well, when TYT smeared their own workers, literally the only person, and again, people were calling out TYT for their bullshit and for union busting. It's not like I'm the only person who pointed out that stuff, but I knew the absolute truth about this whole thing. And so I was dismayed that there was no cavalry, but I also understood that like, this is just the nature of power. This is the nature of the media environment and the way that power functions. And even within this thing, this kind of feeds into my notion of the lie served its purpose of making people get confused enough that they avoided it. Because Kyle Kalinske didn't do any reporting on it afterwards, after it came out. David Doyle didn't do any. Jeff Waldorf didn't do any. Joe Rogan didn't do it. Not that I expect Joe Rogan to do it. He's on his own kind of, category, obviously. Sam Cedar didn't do any. The only person who did was Sahil Habibi, Progressive Voice, and he trashed the workers a bunch, like way more than what's in the movie. So that's the purpose of the New York Times stuff is to show the unfairness of the media, of being smeared, of going through a smear, and then having yourself defended. And then what was it like for the workers to be smeared just for trying to help, better their lives a little bit so they could keep working at that fucking company, because they wanted to help me get health care. Now, by the time the union came forward, I had been placed into the third classification. So I did have health care for those last 2 months of a 14-month stretch. But like we had started the unionizing process at least I started it when I was called an independent contractor, and then they changed that to part-time temporary in June, end of May, actually. And that's really when like I was like, this is fucking nonsense. Like I'm actually like this bullshit. So yeah. So the union originated because one of their own was not getting any healthcare or any benefits and was the lowest paid person there. So yeah. I guess to wrap up these two comments, but like I think this is a problem. And again, this is my first time. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't know how to put out this whole thing. This is all kind of messy and silly and sloppy, and there's definitely a lot of that. But you know what I mean? So like, of course, I'm gonna whiff and miss some of the marks here, but I think though that this is a issue with having a full film because they kind of have it conceptualized as narrative momentums in terms of like the Mike Figueredo thing. He has his own journey that eventually circles back to him leaving TYT, taking great issue with the way they were TYT's trans takes and going to bat for his LGBTQ friends and stuff like that. And so he gets pretty aggressive at TYT at certain points. So like we're going to return to some of those storylines later on. Just to give you guys a spoiler, Joe Rogan Kyle Kalinski's effort to get New York Times to correct, they actually did issue a correction. So they did do a correction. And Joe Rogan brings up the correction with Jimmy Dore. So we're going to see a return to like this New York Times thing. I have kind of a chunk outlined for the final third that is about journalism and about like, what does it mean to issue a correction? And oh, look, back to this video here where Anna's wearing the same shirt because it happened while she was on air. She's wearing a green shirt where she's really pissed off about it. And then like within that same broadcast, she announces that they issued a correction. if TYT ever issues a correction on this, look what it took. Years. One just maniacal guy like me making documentaries and writing articles and making a bunch of stink about it. You know what I mean? So, but conceptualizing this kind of thing as kind of a plot that will eventually kind of like return back to some of the stories. Cause I sort of, as I kind of was getting closer, as I was getting into like, 40 minutes, 60 minutes, 70 minutes of this film, that's when I'm starting to sort of like build this thing back into its own cohesive whole. And so, yeah, like that's why it seems kind of goofy that the New York Times thing is just sort of lingering because of the format of a YouTube video. There's not a really satisfying ending or a wrap up to that video, to the first one. So anyway, that's a good spot. Actually, we'll just jump over to something else really quickly. I wanted to, I was going to, just since I brought it up, I think I said earlier I was going to show something that I totally forgot what it was, of course. God damn it. Yeah, so just real quick, this was this morning. Speaking of Mike Figueredo, Anna tweeted, I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but she's been catching a bunch of flack. This is from Christina Cosmopolitics on Twitch. Good follow. Definitely worth checking out. Show her some support. This is what consuming right-wing media does to a person on the so-called left. All right, fuck it, we'll play it.
Notion of a fascist. Because look, if we're just gonna use fascist toward anyone we dislike, all right, then the word doesn't actually mean anything.
Okay, what do you want me to say, Anna? You want me to say wannabe dictator?
Sure, you can say wannabe dictator, but I don't even think he wants to be a dictator.
Of course he does. That's what you do when you lose an election and you go, oh, I got fake electors and I'd like to terminate the Constitution and bring out the tanks and use martial law against American citizens and shoot protesters. I mean, if that's not fascist, then I guess the word just shouldn't exist.
But was he able to do those things?
Trump's
no, his rhetoric is awful.
Okay.
Like, that's exactly Cenk's reasoning about the union busting. Like, well, no, I wasn't able to union bust, so I couldn't possibly be a union buster. Similar logic loop there, isn't it?
If you don't want to be called fascist, stop saying fascist things. It's not that hard.
Okay.
Not that hard. Oh, here, let me have dinner with Nick Fuentes, who's a Nazi, Kanye, who's a Nazi, and let me say there's good people on the Nazi side. Oh, it could be pro-Confederate guys. Might be guys who are pro-slavery who are good guys. Let me do all of these things. Let me say that immigrants are poisoning the blood of our nation, a Nazi term that is only used in the past by Nazis, and then say I'm gonna ban Muslims, I'm gonna do this and this and this to all the other ethnic groups, and then go, oh, I can't believe you called me a fascist. No, he is a fascist. I'm very happy to call him a fascist.
All right. There.
All right. All right, I'm not gonna get
Was that
back.
an edit? That was a little weird. I'm sorry. Let me see.
There.
Yeah, I feel like that's an edit. That wouldn't have been. So there's a little follow up to that. All right. So this is the same Twitter account that posted this video we just watched. They posted the follow up. Apparently it came back up later in the broadcast, I guess is what happened here. Escover, I'll follow. Why not? Escover writes, asked to define fascism, asterisk, asked to define fascism, asterisk, fails to define fascism.
Trump can be both a racist and a fascist, just like Kamala can.
So Cenk is reading, I'm going to restart it, but Cenk is reading comments. They do, I think they call them social breaks, and they have a timer on there too. So I've seen this already, but it's like, she only gets 30 seconds. This is a difficult question to answer in 30 seconds. So, I mean, there's short versions of it, but this gives you a sense of what this thing has been brewing.
Trump can be both a racist and a fascist, just like Kamala can be Indian and black.
Guys, fascist means something.
What does it mean, Anna?
Okay, in order for someone to carry out a fascist presidency, okay, the conditions in the country have to be very specific. Think about what led to the rise of Mussolini. Okay, following World War I, where you have a bunch of angry, aimless, poor people living in poverty. Okay, you have the Great Depression. Like, I just need people to understand, like, you should be afraid of Trump, but I think the hyperbole is dangerous. It is encouraging people to carry out acts of violence. We need to be careful. That's all I'm saying.
Trump can be both a racist.
Yeah, that screams of right-wing kind of framing. I like to be pedantic about the definition of fascism. And I agree, like, it's overused. I think the word Nazi is overused quite a bit. I also think that America has a dormant, I don't necessarily say they're Nazis, because that concept but the power inherent to, or the sort of power differentials baked into.
All right.
Sorry. The power differentials baked into American society from the very beginning of a racial terror state built around genocide of the native populations, as well as the importation of humans to treat them as cattle, chattel slavery. And then that also means it's a rape regime. It's a torture regime. These lynchings that happened in America over the years, I think there's something like 6,000 documented lynchings. And for every single one of those where a person was killed, I think roughly about 1,000 were white people, but the vast majority were black people. And the white people would have been like allies, more than likely people who got caught up, probably helping a black person or something like that, punished just according, in the same manner. But a lot of these lynchings were like community events where you could look all this up. It's just insane. It's just an absolute horror. Every single one functioned to reaffirm the terror of this immensely horrifying society that we had. But some of them were these like fairs, like town square festival, and they would have vendors and like children. They would bring the kids down to the town square to watch the strange fruit hanging from the tree, and they would dismember the bodies, take them apart, and give out organs and bones and pieces of their victims to the crowd as like souvenirs. And they became kind of like a collector's item sort of thing. Fingers and stuff and feet and heads. It's like, what the fuck? I'm not sure how common that was for all of them, because a lot of the lynchings were just, and they were often supported by the police. The police either looked the other way or were directly involved. And so like the notion that America was a free country really only meant something if you were a rich white person. You had the freedom to do that. Or you could escape the racial terror because you were a white German immigrant in 1850 and you were living in the Minnesota frontier or some shit like that. You know what I mean? But in these like areas all over the country, these events happened. And so I guess but like I heard a guy on TikTok, a guy I like a lot, is this fuzzy faced man. And I say that with because I feel like that'll help you identify him. His name is Hype R Vigilance. HYPE space R Vigilance. He's really smart dude. So many interesting takes. He talks a lot about narcissism and stuff, but he'll get into politics as well. And he kind of describes whiteness as fascism, as like a root code of like kind of fascism stuff. So to tie this back to why I brought this up was there's a lot going on right now. Anna's trending on Twitter. That's crazy. I wanted to just show what Mike Figueredo responded to, which was right in here somewhere. Someone has a definition that they posted. We'll read this one because there are various ways of defining it, and fascism is very fungible to its society in which it grows up out of. Not all fascism is going to look exactly like Mussolini. So here someone wrote synonyms of fascism. Noun, often fascism, a populist political philosophy, movement or regime such as that of the fascisti that exalts nation and often race above the individual, that is associated with a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, and that is characterized by severe economic and social regimentation and by forcible suppression of opposition. Okay, good. What the fuck? It was just right up there. Okay, here. All right, so here Mike Figueredo writes, I think it's a typo. It sucks when a tweet has a typo in it, but he goes, your enlightened centrist bullshit isn't making you seem reasonable. You're just denying reality at this point. And he included a picture at the top. It says, spotted in the Holocaust Museum, early warning signs of fascism. Fascism, all caps at the top. Powerful and continuing nationalism, disdain for human rights, identification of enemies as a unifying cause, supremacy of the military, rampant sexism, controlled mass media, obsession with national security, religion and government intertwined, corporate power protected, labor power suppressed, disdain for intellectuals and the arts, obsession with crime and punishment, rampant cronyism and corruption. I mean, that nails the Trump administration. That nails the right-wing project. That nails the GOP, their desperate bid to, you know, they know demographically they're being shunted out. They know there's enough white people finally fed up with this nonsense. We all have our own internalized cultural conditioning to unpack. All of our lives have been worsened by the society that we were born into here. And, you know, I'm trying to do some of the work myself. I'm sure I'm not perfect. But like, this is exactly what the Trumps are doing. This is the ways that this whole thing works. And I don't think Trump necessarily looks at this and goes, all right, I'll do this one and this one and this one and this one. Like, but he just instinctively does all this. And then he's buttressed by the rest of the GOP apparatus that sees him as an incredibly useful way to sustain their grip on society, or to increase to strengthen their grip on society, to tighten their control. And the Elon Musk factor is terrifying. These tech freaks, Peter Thiel and their boy JD Vance, Elon Musk, the kind of stuff that's going on with that is just utterly just off the charts. And then I'll just scroll up real quick here. Someone writes, correct Andy writes, authoritarian is good enough for Trump. Fascist, however, denotes military rule, military conquest, Mussolini and Ethiopia, Hitler and Europe, North Africa, dissolving the popularly elected legislature, all organs of government in a cult of personality. Trump isn't all that. So he's not conquesting Europe and Northern Africa. Hitler going after them, Mussolini in Ethiopia. And Anna says exactly. I mean, this just stinks of right-wingers being pedantic and trying to parse what fascism means in order to defend the obvious fascism of Trump. You know, this appeal to the mythical past of America is a big part of fascism too. Like having this, like the Nazi party had rewritten their history to, you know, reflect some kind of hallowed peoples of the great German Aryan race that, you know, was once this wonderful thing, and like the grievance of that being taken from them. And America has its own, you know, history of its founding fathers. I like when people say it's not a patriarchy, and then they'll get upset if you attack the fathers. We're supposed to venerate these fucking guys, these slave owning scoundrels. Yeah, so this is fascinating. Anna's really in the weeds here on Twitter this week, it seems like, arguing about fascism. Yeah, and like this notion of like because it lacks military rule and military conquest, they're as if America isn't this world's strongest military, the most lethal fighting force. I know that's the Democrats, because the capitalists and the Republicans and the Democrats are capitalist warmongering fucking freaks, obviously. But the right likes to act like Trump is anti-war. I'm not going to go into all of it. I've just been seeing this conversation going on, bouncing back and forth. You know, Trump is all in on expanding the genocide in Israel and taking that land, and he would greenlight eliminating the people, or, you know, Israel taking the West Bank, which is much bigger than Gaza. He assassinated an Iranian general, which is a very provocative thing to do. If you're trying to avoid war and you're just blowing up Iran's a popular general or some like top guy there, like luckily Iran has some sanity and didn't answer that. They're like, imagine being in that position. You got these belligerent colonial state in the Middle East causing all this chaos, attacking their neighbors, just going hog wild, trying to start a larger war with the United States backing. And like this whole idea that like, well, fascism, if we're going to make our high watermark for fascism, you have to be Mussolini invading Ethiopia or Hitler taking over Europe and North Africa. And then that's the thing you point to prove that Donald Trump was not a fascist movement. It's not the head of a fascist movement, or that the GOP itself isn't. Give me a fucking break, man. He's talking about invading Mexico. Saying shit like that. Speaking about the enemy within, turning the military on its own people. Does that count as military conquest? This is some bullshit, dude. So anyway, I'll be looking at this on my phone later on when I'm supposed to be editing this fucking podcast. All right, guys, thanks so much. We did it. We got through another one. So we'll skip a bunch of the stuff I had. I had a whole bunch of links I had chosen. Got a good liars clip. Joe Biden. Oh, this fucking asshole. This stupid idiot Joe Biden calling people garbage. So, and then now we're parsing out whether he meant it's just shut the hell up, Joe Biden. Get the hell out of here. Naomi Klein I wanted to talk about. Trump saying something stupid and weird. All this kind of stuff about this whole deal. So I was gonna just talk about it. It's fine. We've done more than enough for today. Thank you for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing more. I'm gonna get it together. I really just gotta get. Yeah. We'll get it together. We're working on it. A lot more to do for the project. I want to do some kind of update of sort of a project update, just sort of update the timeline graphic that I have and kind of give people a bit of that, and then sort of prep for doing a fundraiser of some sort. And then I also have recorded some production diaries over the last few years where I was working on the video and then I just turned the camera on and talked. So I have those in some folder, so I'm going to dig those out and put those on Patreon. Those will be like exclusive benefits, I think. And yeah, every day I think to myself, well, tomorrow I'll get it. Everything's going to click for me tomorrow. Everything will be fine tomorrow when I get things together tomorrow. And I'm going to be back. I'm going to get everything together. But it's been a good turn here, though, this last few months. This last couple weeks has been, last week and a half, I guess, has been really nice to see some interest in the story. Reading all this stuff. Just now seeing people validating and showing interest in the video and showing interest in the project and caring about it. That means a lot to me. We'll see where it goes, though. We still got a long way to go. And with your help, we can do it. We can do it together. The rarest thing in our culture is a powerful person being held accountable for something. So that's what this is about. All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. See you later. Anybody need a cat?